Hey guys, Savannah Bell here with My Massage World, and this week's video is inspired by a question that was posed in our private members only Facebook group about homemade products like sugar scrubs and things like that. So it got me thinking. There's some serious risks involved with selling this sort of thing, and I don't think a lot of therapists are aware of these risks. So let's look at the 3 big legal protections you must have in place if you're selling homemade products in your massage practice. So whether you're selling your own products or someone else's, there are 3 major considerations to make if you're selling anything like sugar scrubs, lotions, lip balms, anything of the sort. Number 1, you must use a preservative for the absolute majority of these products. If there is even a speck of water or water-based ingredient, or if the product is likely to be exposed to moisture in the air, or have someone's fingers scraping into it, it needs a freaking preservative. Both because that's just the thing to do to be a decent human being that works to not harm others, and you really don't want the lawsuit that can happen if you're guilty of not doing this. Now you may think, well, it's just little old me and my products only use the best all natural organic ingredients, blah, blah, blah. That's great and all. Guess what? Mold, freaking organic and all natural. So are bacteria. And what if your client goes to put that infested scrub or lotion onto their skin over even a slight cut or opening in the skin like a nick from shaving? That nastiness just breached the barrier and is now possibly infecting that little opening and potentially invading their bloodstream. And what if, heaven forbid, that person is immunocompromised due to an illness or a medication? Okay, look, I'm not trying to scare the bejesus out of you, but well, I guess I am. This isn't something to mess around with, okay? This is very serious and needs to be addressed. But I've seen therapists make these products or buy from someone local who makes them with all these great ingredients, but no preservative. And then they sit on a shelf for 6 months or a year, and just because something looks or smells fine does not mean it is fine. For the love of all that is holy in this world, put a freaking preservative in your products. And no, essential oils of any kind, while they may have some properties that are antibacterial or antifungal, are not full spectrum, safe, and reliable preservatives. And the sheer amount you would have to add to a product to reach the level of possibly making an essential oil act as a preservative would usually render the product unsuitable or even hazardous. There are all natural ones out there, yes. Parabens, phenoxyethanol, and those sorts of things are preservatives, and I'm right there with you on not wanting to put that crap in my products or on my skin. But you can find all natural broad-spectrum preservatives that will keep away bacteria and fungi if you want to, you don't want to use the harsher stuff. For example, just name a few. You could use willow bark extract, which is all natural. Or Preservative Eco, which is a special formulation of benzyl alcohol, salicylic acid, glycerin, and sorbic acid, all of which are naturally derived. When going with all natural preservatives, you're often going to need a much higher concentration, so the preservative will have to make up a larger percentage of your product than some others would. This is not something to guess at. Research this stuff thoroughly and test it and have a specific recipe. Now let me make one distinction here that I think is important. There is a big difference between rancidity and growth of mold or bacteria. Again, just because something smells or looks fine does not mean it is fine. Mold and bacteria can be growing at a microscopic level long before you ever see or smell the first little tinge of something funky. This growth happens due to moisture and a good food source like sugars and much of the stuff we like to put in these products. Rancidity, on the other hand, is when the oil, butter, or other fat-based ingredients within your product go bad. For example, almond oil has a shelf life of 1 year, so it will smell fine and the oil will still be good for a year from the time it's made. Once you get close to that year mark, the smell will start to turn. So the product may still be safe if preservatives were used, but the oil is basically just old and rancid. But if that same product is exposed to moisture at all, or you include any ingredients that contain water, like hydrosols or floral water or aloe vera juice, they can grow bacteria and mold long before you ever see or smell the first signs that something is wrong. So please, please, please use a preservative in your products. We live in an age of being able to order anything online. Do your research and find a preservative that works for what you're making. And if you're using or selling someone else's homemade products, make sure they're using a preservative and that it's at the right concentration to be effective. Okay, moving on. Number 2, label your products clearly. This is not just a preference, this is a rule of the FDA here in the US. And I'm in the United States, so that's what I'm referencing, is the legalities here. If you are outside of the US, please check with your local and national laws and regulations. Laws can get really detailed and complex here, but I'm going to try to keep this simple for you. Now, while the FDA does regulate cosmetics somewhat, which many of these sorts of spa products would fall under, there are some serious concerns over the claims made about your products so that you're not falling under what would be classified as a drug. So let's look at exactly what the FDA says here on this. Quote, a product is a cosmetic if it is intended for uses such as the cleansing of the human body, making a person more attractive, or changing a person's appearance. Some products meet the definition of both cosmetics and drugs. This may happen when a product has 2 intended uses. For example, a shampoo is a cosmetic because its intended use is to cleanse the hair. An anti-dandruff treatment is a drug because its intended use is to treat dandruff. Consequently, an anti-dandruff shampoo is both a cosmetic and a drug. Among other cosmetic drug combinations are toothpaste that contain fluoride, deodorants that are also antiperspirants, and moisturizers and makeup marketed with sun protection claims. Such products must comply with the requirements for both cosmetics and drugs. So unless you feel like going far more in depth with legal requirements and lab testing for your products, don't make any claims about treating any sort of medical condition, okay? Even seemingly small stuff like minor skin conditions, that would still fall under the classification of a drug. If you're claiming to make any changes to the structure or function of the body and any components of it, including the skin, then it is classified as a drug. Now, a few points here when it comes to labeling and such for your products. You don't have to get your label approved by the FDA beforehand. Thank God. But it is your responsibility to ensure that your label is accurate and follows all the guidelines. So you must have the name of the product on the label. Pretty simple. All ingredients must be listed by their common name and or their scientific name without any further description. So if they're certified organic, that can be used as part of the name in that list. But this is why you sometimes see a little star next to each ingredient on a label, and then that star is explained below or somewhere else, the ingredient list, as marking those ingredients that are all natural or naturally derived or organic or whatever other description they want. You just don't list that type of descriptive term with the ingredient on the ingredient list, okay? You must have a directions for safe use section on your label. You must list out any warnings like don't use on open wounds, not meant to treat, cure, or prevent any medical conditions, things like that. And just because something is natural does not mean it is safe for everyone, okay? Arsenic is natural, for heaven's sake, so is botulism. Let's be adults here and look at reality, okay? Even essential oils and such that many people claim are natural can be quite hazardous to people with certain conditions and when not used properly. As for cosmetics, color additives are the only ingredient that has to be approved by the FDA. So you probably just shouldn't use those. Okay. The term natural is not a regulatory term and you can use that however you want. It doesn't mean squat to the FDA or as a term of safety, but is more so used as a marketing ploy. Plain and simple. The FDA does not regulate the use of the term organic, but the USDA does. So you cannot state your product is organic unless you have it independently tested and approved by them. Instead, you will list out all of those ingredients individually that have been officially classified as organic by the USDA and come with that little seal showing that legal standing approval. And you can say it is made with USDA organic ingredients. But your product, unless you want to pay big bucks and get it officially approved by the USDA, cannot be labeled as USDA organic, even if every ingredient you use is. Make sense? The FDA requires cosmetic labels to identify the name and place of the business, of manufacturer, packer, or distributor. You need the physical address of your business or the business that makes your products for you on that label. Not a P.O. box, not a website address alone. Those things are fine to include if you want, but you still have to have the physical address on there too. The quantity of the product must be listed, ounces, grams, whatever. Measure it, put it on the label. Every bit of the typeface on the label needs to be large enough to be clearly legible. There's even regulation regarding the size of what they call the principal display label, or basically the primary label that you use on packaging. So For a rectangular package, the label has to take up one entire side. For cylindrical packages, the label has to be 40% of the height times the circumference. And for other shaped containers, the label needs to be 40% of the total container surface, not including the top, bottom, neck, and other decorative protrusions. Seriously, this is the law, okay? It's detailed. If you have an outer container holding the primary container with the product inside, you need to have a similar label with all this information on both of those containers. And you will also want to include an expiration from open date. So this could be something like, use within 6 months from the date opened, or just a little symbol of a jar with a 6 months written on it. Or you can even have a blank space on your label so that you can write in the date it was made and the use by date. And lastly, and I'll keep this one short because it's pretty straightforward. Number 3, you must collect sales tax. This will obviously depend on your area, but for most places, yes, even if you are only selling a few items here and there, sales tax will still need to be collected. So you will have to apply for a sales tax permit or ID with your state, collect that tax, and then pay it to your state every month, every quarter, or every year, depending on their requirements and your preferences. Now, some of you might find this obvious, but I've seen many therapists who do not do this. They think they're just selling a few things and it's no big deal, but you know what is a big deal? Tax fraud, tax evasion. If you were just making some crafts and selling a little every now and then out of your home, some areas may not have regulations on that, but you're a business and your business is selling a product. Therefore, you need to collect sales tax. Now, whether you add this on top of your product price or include it in the price is totally up to you. But either way, the state expects to get their piece. You better give it to them. Plain and simple, collect and pay the taxes your area requires. Now, I know this video has thrown a lot of information at you, but this is the stuff you have to think about. You're a business. Act like one. This stuff isn't all that hard. It'll just take a little time to put it all together at first, make sure everything is on the up and up, and then it's smooth sailing from there with no worries about, someone getting hurt or you getting in legal trouble for failure to, properly label or pay your taxes. For more info and tips on how to grow your massage practice, be sure to join the free My Massage World Facebook group. Thank you so much for watching today. As always, check us out at mymassageworld.com, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and stay tuned for more videos. There's a new one every week.